Hello and good morning, this is G4NAB, Chris, with another SvxLink video. It so happens that I'm updating my micro repeater, and I'm updating it to the version 25 software, which is the latest output from Tobias SM0SVX. It's version 25, but I have been able to write it into a package which makes the build so much more easy than trying to compile it from scratch. But it also contains a number of other interesting items that we'll work across when we get to them. I'm writing an SD card with the SvxLink builder image, which although it contains SvxLink, it's not yet configured for operational use. As soon as I've got that up on the screen, I'll show you where we're going to go. I'm not going to have a rant, but I am going to make a comment, because it seems to me that there's an awful lot of stuff out there for AllStar Link, which, as far as I can ascertain, and the way I'm using it at the moment, is a point-to-point system. And if you tell me you want to connect to somebody, you've got to dial them up and connect to them. Which is all very well, but very few people seem to be taking the opportunity to look at SvxLink as a package, as a repeater controller, as an EchoLink node, and instead opting for something which is actually quite complicated in its setup. Whereas SvxLink is now streamlined enough to be set up and ready to go within 10 minutes of saving the SD card. Right, off and running. I've loaded the SD card into the Raspberry Pi 02W in this case, in my mobile repeater. The first thing I've got to do is make sure that it knows who the Wi-Fi provider is, because at the moment it's generating its own hotspot, which is good news, because it means you don't have to mess about with networks just at the moment. But if you're out and about and you've got a mobile phone, just make a note of your ESSS ID and your password, and when it comes to looking it up, this thing generates its own hotspot. You connect to the hotspot with your mobile phone, and you click on the air scan, which is the first button on the left hand side here, and that will look for all networks that it can see. And we can see that my home device is there, so I'm going to look at the connection list. At the moment it's only got a hotspot showing, so we'll forget about that. We'll put in my ESS ID and the password, add network and connect. Naturally this is going to make the Wi-Fi bulk of it, and this configurator will disappear because it's no longer on its own hotspot. So we'll go back to our own Wi-Fi, and we are connecting, and we can clear that away, and we can see that in fact we have got installed a rudimentary dashboard. Under normal circumstances, your new node will appear as SvxLink.local. But if you've got other hotspots like I've got running around the place, then that's not going to be a possibility. But I found the IP address for this particular unit, and it serves me to run the browser at 192.168.206, so 206, and it shows me that I've got a dashboard. You don't think you get one of those on AllStar? Not in the same way. You get AllMon 3, but you don't get a working dashboard. Right, let's carry on. So first of all, we need to access the terminal in the Raspberry Pi to set the menu running. So here I have a blank command prompt screen, and I'm going to enter the terminal for the Raspberry Pi. And we do that with SSH Pi at 192.168 1.1.206. Right, we access the terminal of the Raspberry Pi to initiate the installation of the programs. How you get into a Raspberry Pi terminal, you can do it with PuTTY, or as I've done in this case, it's the terminal screen on a Windows PC. So I'm using Windows 11, but it will work on any other system. Our first command is to set the menu running so we can configure the SvxLink. So we're going to go /SvxLink builder /install.sh. This is going to run a bash script which will install everything that we need. The good thing is that it's got lots of information here for Italian, French and US English, so let's not worry about the source of the problem at the moment. Right, enter. Now we get our first menu where we choose the language. Naturally I'm going to choose English United Kingdom. Welcome to the world of SvxLink. You are now about to configure SvxLink to the specifications provided. I'm going to provide them, of course. They will replace those held in the SvxLink default configuration. To change them in the future, you can do so in the web dashboard. However, the first change will be to the USB sound card in use. Then further changes will be to the SvxLink configuration. At the end of the configuration, you can access the web dashboard, and that's where things get really interesting. The fixed IP address will be provided as you progress. So here we go. Do we have an SA818 device fitted as a transceiver in your hotspot? This is particularly useful for those people who have got a Shari node, as this does actually work with a Shari node. So if you've bought one and you can't get on with AllStar Link, then you can always try this, and it works. So I'm going to select no because I don't have. I'm happen to use a modified CM119 device in this particular repeater, and that relies on transmit and receive being controlled by UDEV. But you can have a fully modified for transmit only, like on a Dollartech CM108 sound card, or you can use one unmodified, which means you have to provide the extra wiring to go to the GPIO bus on the Raspberry Pi. With, I hasten to add, suitable buffering in place. Remember that the Raspberry Pi can't handle more than 3 point something volts on the GPIO pins. So, proceed. Fully modified sound card for me. Am I going to be using a simplex node or a repeater? This is a micro repeater. It has a transmitter and a receiver and is fully duplex. So I'm going to go a repeater node with SvxReflector. The node call sign G4NAB-M. I'm using that because it's a mobile repeater. And it will now run through a series of commands in bash and update all the software, putting it all in from the various places until the next menu is encountered. I'll just wait for that. This one shouldn't be too long because it's fairly well updated, this software. But it's fun to watch. Right, because we're going to be using a dashboard, we'll need a username. And we're going to paste this in a secure place. It's not going to be subject to embarrassment later on. Dashboard username, in my case, I'm going to be the SvxLink. What's my dashboard password? Well, I'm going to be putting it in secret. So I'm going to type in my password. And you need to confirm it. The dashboard has been installed and we've got an IP address 192.168.1.206 on the LAN, which is what I knew anyway, but it will tell you what your current system is going to be using. Enter your reflector key. Now the reflector key, I'm afraid, is not automatic. You can get it for me, but it's a one-off. You don't have to supply with any secret details. I just want your email address so I can send it back to you, and I will put mine in here now. I've selected a node type repeater with the UK SvX reflector. There are other reflectors about and it's simple to change, so don't worry about it. Start with here. If you can't connect because you haven't got a password, not to worry, because you can then put in your own reflector details later. Are we going to use a preferred time format, 12-hour clock or 24-hour clock? I like to be 24-hour clock myself. Now then, you will get some settings here. Do not deviate from these settings unless you want to increase the speed of the CW. It will always be -10 or -12. It's got to be minus, otherwise your system will flip a lid, I tell you. Pitch of the CW tone, if you listen on the HF bands, 650 Hz is more or less pretty standard. What speed? I'm set it here for 95 characters per minute, which is roughly 12 words a minute. I like to do it a little bit faster, so I'll go 120. Now we've got some time intervals. Like most systems, you like a periodic ident. Regulations say you should ident 15 minutes. I'm going to select 15 minutes here on my repeater. But I can also have a long ident period, which is usually an hour, hour and a half, half an hour. I'm going to set it for an hour. So every quarter of an hour it will use a short ident, and on the hour it will use a long ident. Now then, what announcement types are available? We've got several. Short voice ID enable, short CW ID enable. You can have one or the other or both. Don't think you really want to do that. You can also enable a short announcement or a long announcement. The long announcements and the short announcements are not configured. This is something that you will have to figure out by putting an announcement in, by creating a sound sample of your own device and then storing it in the appropriate place. I can talk you through that. That won't be an issue. But I'm going to have a short CW ID, so it will only announce my call sign in CW on the quarter hours, and it will tell everybody with a long voice ID enable on the hour. And that's the only ones that I'm going to announce here. What's your beeps? Some people like a beep. Some people like a K, some people like a T, and some people don't want any sound at all, but it's nice to get some acknowledgement, so I usually go for the K, to be honest. Sound options. Now there's a built-in idle time on the repeater system by SvxLink. It's the period after which the last person has spoken before the repeater does its close down. And you can select that length of time. You'll get that choice in a moment. But you can have a periodic bell tone, which is or boing every so often. It jars a bit, or I've toned it down a bit to make it a more pleasant chime. Or you can have a simple pip, 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 until the repeater shuts down. Or you don't have to have it at all, you can have silence. I'm going to select the pip. Now we have a default close tone. The default tone is a beep boop, or no tone at all, the carrier just shuts off, or you can have di-di-di-da-di-da. This can be instead of the default call sign. If the call sign hasn't been given for some time, it will actually close with the call sign. Nothing you can do about that. That's part of the system. I'm going to go to the VA bard, which is di-di-di-da-di-da. Now the idle timeout. This is the period in which you have the pip or the tone or the boing. I'm going to select 7 seconds. So it's quite short after the last person has spoken, but people will know that there is a repeater there. So that's been set to 7 seconds. Do you want to configure the meta information? Do you like listening to the weather at your local airport? There are some airports selected for the various countries. Spain, France and the US and the UK. I've configured a list of airports specific to those regions, and they come up in this following list. I'm going to select obviously yes, and here we have the list of the airports. We have London Heathrow. I like that. If I go from Newcastle to Heathrow, I like to know what the weather's like. We'll have Gatwick as well, and we also have routes from Newcastle, so we'll put that in as well. We also have flights to Southampton from Newcastle, and we have flights to Belfast, both airports. Now we have a default airport, the one that will activate every time you go into the module with a specific tone. So we'll have Newcastle. Do we want EchoLink in this? No, I don't, because I've got EchoLink on my simplex node. But if you do, you've got to remember what your password was. Right, it says the installation is complete. Wow. So, here we go. We now close down the terminal and we transition to the dashboard. I'm going to refresh what was already there, and there we have it. G4NAB repeater, mobile repeater. I'm quite pleased with the recent developments for this dashboard because it's now been considerably enhanced. But we'll now show you some of the features. We'll start at the top, and if the repeater idents during that period, we'll be able to listen to it. I've got a radio set up just here. The top bar, of course, is the title of the repeater. And then you can see just below the title bar are a number of menus. Some of them are in blue, which means that you can access them as a user if the system operator permits the exposure of this dashboard in the public domain. However, only he can access the second line because it's password protected. Across on the left hand side we've got an RX monitor, and this is a recent development. If I click on it, it goes green. We have got now live streaming from the repeater's transmission, so if anybody connects to it, we can actually hear what's going on. Immediately below that we've got the SvxLink information. It tells me that there's active logics, there are modules loaded, and there are a talk group set. It's also saying it is listening and it's connected to the UK portal, which is the SvxLink reflector. Below that we've got some system information telling you when it was last rebooted, and at the bottom editing function says not authorized. So it proves that you cannot get in until you've been authorized to use it. The central part has a multifunction. At the moment it's displaying SvxLink, SvxReflector activity. Of course there is none because we've only just started the unit. At the bottom we've got a series of coloured buttons. Now these have been pre-programmed with TalkGroups, so we can actually connect to TalkGroups without going into the realms of pushing DTMF buttons on the keyboard. So if you're close to or you have knowledge of one of these dashboards, then you can actually call up a TalkGroup yourself by clicking on the button and then speaking to the channel, which becomes activated. Come on to those in a moment. Immediately below those coloured buttons there is an empty box where you can actually set up a DTMF command to do what you want it to do. So that's an additional feature. And right at the bottom you've got the hardware information relating to the Raspberry Pi unit. This particular repeater is running on a Raspberry Pi Zero. It's connected to two SA818 units which provide the transmit and receive, and it's running on Raspberry OS Bookworm, which is Debian 12. Debian 13 still got to be tested in my view, but I'm happy with running on this. Despite it being a legacy software now, it does certainly have some lifetime left in it, considering that PiStar is still running on Bullseye. The CPU usage is at 5.86%, that's pretty low. Voltage is okay, and the CPU temperature, because I have a fan installed at the back of the repeater, it's keeping it relatively cool at 35 degrees. If that goes into the orange, yeah, time to think about a fan. If it goes red, then the life of your Raspberry Pi is going to be curtailed in the short term. Right, let's first of all show you some of the editing features. First of all, I'm going to authorize myself. And I authorize myself with the password that is set up during the menu. And you see on the bottom left hand column, authorized has been entered in green in the editing box, so I can now move into any of the red menus. First of all, let's have a look at the SvxLink. This is the configuration of the current setup, and what happens now is that if you're creating a simplex node, then repeater logic will be removed. If you're completing a repeater, then the simplex logic will be removed, so it slims down the content of the editing suite. Now you can look through the whole of the svxlink.conf, and at the bottom, if you make any changes, click the red button. It saves those new settings, having kept a backup of the previous settings, and restarts SvxLink without having a reboot. Let's click across to buttons. Now these relate to the buttons at the bottom, and you can actually change them. You can change the colour, and you can do all sorts of things. I'm going to put an airport in here. I'm going to put EGNT, I'll put it in capitals, and the code for me to call that up normally would be 5. Where are we? 5 hash or £, and I'm going to give that a different colour. I'm going to go for gold, and I'm going to click save, and then I'm going to refresh the dashboard. And you see it immediately, we've got a button at the bottom which is labelled EGNT, which is this Newcastle Airport IAOC code. And by clicking on that, I can make the airport weather, sound. As you see, the RX monitor has gone blue again. Every time you refresh the screen, that will turn blue. I'm going to click on EGNT and click on the RX monitor.
Alpha, Bravo, repeater, activating, retard information.
Activating, retard information. Newcastle, airport, Met report time, 1020, wind, 160 degree, at 04 knots, wind, in the vicinity, 0702, 200 degrees, visibility, more than 10 kilometers, visibility, 5 kilometers, northwest, light, rain, clouds, view, 700 feet, scattered, 1,100 feet, temperature, 8 degrees, dew point, 8 degrees, QNH, 1,000 hectopascals.
Wow. Okay. I'll send another hash to turn that module off.
Information.
Disconnected. And there's that VA barred at the end to say that's the repeater shutting down. Okay, so a bit more about these buttons. You have a number of them in green. I've designated them in green because they are standard talk groups on the SvxLink system. A lot of repeaters will have some of those in. So when you call on one of those talk groups, you'll wake another repeater up somewhere else in the district, or the country, or the world. I'll explain more later. The blue ones are connected to AllStar Link nodes. They are available. So there's one here for the online amateur radio community, there's one for Anglo-Scottish, and there's one for the Northwest All-Star group. So they're the local ones. I've also got for the adventurers a link direct to the IR49 group in France, which is an up-and-coming organisation that is looking at better ways to use SvxLink. The orange buttons on the left-hand side are also AllStar Link nodes. One is the East Coast Reflector on the eastern seaboard of the USA. That's a very, very busy group. And we have the Freedom Net, which is basically freedom to do what you like, provided, of course, you do it properly. And then you've got HR20, which is actually Ham Radio 2.0. This is a network run by Jason, KC5HWB, who has a blog or vlog, Ham Radio 2.0, on YouTube. Now the yellow buttons remain to be programmed. So you've got a few there. You can overwrite the ones that are there, or you can create them anew. But the only thing you need to remember is how to construct the codes that precede the talk group. 9.1 means that it's standby, there's a talk group coming. Then you put in the talk group, and then you end the command with a £# hash. So you can see that some of these on the right hand side will be 9147920 hash is the connection for the OARC, the online amateur radio community. Okay, moving on. Not entirely successful. We have here the audio configurator, which tends to create one or two issues with some sound cards. So I'll come back to that in just a moment on how we can correct your audio. And then we move on to the EchoLink system. You can set your EchoLink here put all the details in and add it later. I'll show you how momentarily. You put your call sign in, your password, and all the other specific details you want to include, and click Save and Reload. It won't work until such time as we've configured SvxLink. So we go back to SvxLink, and you'll see at the top here you've got logics, and if you go further down to the repeater logic, we've got modules, and you've got module help, module parrot, and module meta info. All we've got to do is comma module EchoLink, and that's capital M, capital E, capital L. Scroll to the very bottom, push save and reload, and your EchoLink node is connected. Naturally, you should have registered with EchoLink before this. Going back up to meta information on the menu, if you've got a particular favourite airport, you can put it in the start default. But unless it's got a weather service set up, you will not hear anything. And that is usually set up with the weather service coming from the USA. As you can see here, we've got the list of airports on the bottom line, which indicates what we've already put up. Finally, we've got node information. You don't have to do anything with this, but it will help to put your system on the map on the portal. I'll show you for how. I'm in Northumberland. I'm also in Ashington. I'm at 55.181 degrees north and minus 5465 degrees longitude. That's west of Greenwich. And my code IO95 Foxtrot Echo. And then we've put the frequency of the receiver, which in my case here is 438,500, and its Scotch type is COR, and the transmitter is 450,900, being 7.6 meg split. Save and reload on any of those buttons there, and that installs the node JSON file. One final thing for the system operator is that he can actually watch the log, and the log activation there shows my last activation was in fact the meta information for EGNT, and the fact that I turned the meta logic off, so there's been nothing active since. The audio system on here at the moment still requires some testing, so I wouldn't rely on that particularly much at the moment, but it won't be long. The DTMF has an extension. You can actually dial the DTMF codes from the patch panel. TalkGroups, this is a list of identifiable talk groups, and for those who know DMR, they're very similar. Why create a different talk group system when one exists? So we didn't. Nodes, this is almost a duplication of the dashboard display, but it's there displaying information. There's nothing selected at the moment because I have no active talk groups monitoring. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go into SvxLink and add a few talk groups that we can monitor. We scroll all the way down to reflector logic because that takes care of who's talking at the time. Here we go, and the current talk group list is 1. Monitoring talk groups 1, 2, 3, 5. But I want to put in there some talk groups which I will like to monitor. So we're going to go for, oh, there we go, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, which is the Newcastle area monitoring talk group. More about that in just a moment. And I'm going to put in there 47920 and 53573, which is the Northwest AllStar group. And I scroll to the very bottom of the screen and put in save and reload. And those talk groups immediately populate the left hand side. There's no activity working on those at the moment, so there hasn't spurred any activity to the dashboard either. So let's go to the dashboard, and that immediately removes my authorization from the editing suite. And we can click on RX Monitor. Now with my handy talkie over here, I'm going to call up one of these talk groups.
Talk group 53573.
53573.
I'm now connected to the Northwest AllStar group. This is Chief 4NAB Golf 4 November Alpha Bravo. Just doing a test.
Golf 4 November Alpha Bravo repeater.
November Alpha Bravo repeater.
Surprised I didn't get anybody coming back to me. But we'll disconnect from that particular talk group and go to another one where I already know there is activity.
Have you still got to use your computer to change the output when it comes out as?
Turn my radio off.
Talk group
Talk group 23529.
I'm now on the Anglo-Scottish group. And this is not radio, this is the live stream coming from the dashboard.
I can now listen on EMR on time slot 1, time slot number 2. So that means I can hear the one network on 1.
Okay, we'll turn off the RX monitor for the moment. Disconnect from the talk group.
Talk group 0.
Talk group 0 is the default disconnected talk group. So, back to the dashboard. So, I've gone through the building, which was in real time, and demonstration of the dashboard in real time. If you're not impressed with that, then there's just another couple of items that I glossed over earlier on. Is that the modification of the sound card setup. As I said, the software modifications that A-Mixer does may differ from sound card to sound card, and this is certainly the case with my little micro repeater. So the only sure way of making sure that your audio is about right.
4 November Alpha Bravo repeater.
Bear with me, let me just turn off that RX monitor, because that is somewhat interrupting. Is to go to the yes, you finished? Thank you. Right, is to go to the AllStar mixer. So you go to the terminal and you type in sudo AllStar mixer and you get this screen. And these are the optimum settings. On the left hand side you've got the output, as it were. Let me just find where I've lost it. There it is. Which is the speaker output. Now the speaker is actually going to be going to the transmit side of your node, and I've set it there for about 75, which is more or less optimum. The microphone, counterintuitively, is turned off because we don't want the microphone feeding back through into the speaker. So what you need to do is to turn that off, and you also want to turn off the auto gain control, which you have to type M, highlight that with the arrow keys on your keyboard. You slide across to the right hand side and you type M to mute the auto gain control. Come back one to the capture, which is where we deal with the receiver of your node, and you set that to anything between 25 and 45 to get the right balance of audio. I'm sure I turned this off. Yeah, it must be running somewhere on the dashboard. I cannot see. So, where was we just a moment? Oh yes, that was the next thing. Was the talk group 23561. Let's go back to the dashboard a moment. Now 23561, I said, was the Yorkshire, the Newcastle area talk group. 23561 is also the Newcastle area talk group on DMR. And would it surprise you to know that there was a possibility that you could actually link DMR and analog together in this place? I'll leave you to find that out. And finally, on the dashboard aspect, there is also talk group 23450, which links this SvxLink reflector to the YorkshireNet SvxReflector, which is running in complete partnership. They are connected together with all the talk groups. So what they hear, we hear, and what we hear, they hear. But we are taking all the information across the two. So the two SvX reflectors are linked together. So if you would want to talk to our friends over in the YorkshireNet, talk group 23450 connects the two together. So you'll be able to go out on the Keithley repeater, for example, where Josh M0 DIT is the sysop, and you'll have a chat with the Yorkshire lads. And finally, I managed to catch a piece of a QSO. So stand by, we'll demonstrate that as well. I just changed the tone on my repeater so you can hear the chime. And that was Mike India 0 calling in from across the water. And that's what the other tone sounds like.
KM, this is M7DKV. Do you have a good morning, so Catherine? I've literally just sat down. Over to you.
Oh, a QSO in progress. I like it.
Good morning, Georgina. Good morning. It's been busy since yesterday. Oh, dear. But a dilemma out, and then I had to run into the store and to the TV store to get a new TV. And then he told me this morning that when you take me back down, I need to get a lead to plug the aerial thing in, and I've just been running all over the place there. And then I hear again. Oh, bless you. Well, maybe you get it working again. Well, if it's capable of running again, that's it. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit, I woke up this morning, it's 9 o'clock the usual. I'm sort of starting to feel a bit better. I'm a bit sleepy though, if you get what I mean. I wasn't great the last 4 days, but I started feeling a lot better last night, and today I'm doing well as well. So, thank God. Yes, I like feeling well, you know, when you wake up and you just think, oh, this is lovely, yes, yep. The good days,
Okay.
The good days, yes, I like those days. So, I thought this morning, I've had a breakfast of 2 black puddings and a bit of yogurt and a bit of kiwi, and I've started a Boston smoothie. I've started adding a couple of extra bits to my diet now, Catherine, you know, just to change things up a little bit for a change. So I've added a bit of fruit and a bit of yogurt and whatnot. So yes, that's how things are going at the moment over here. So we'll get on doing a few bits. I'm just copying over, I've just caught me actually, I'm just copying over the some call signs from the book. I've got a new book to organise things into, so I'm literally just copying those over into the new book, to organise everything as I do. And I've been organising all my work and stuff this morning. Back over to you anyway, MI0KM from M7GKB. M7GKB, MI0KM, I must have gone to get a new boyfriend. He called me in the last time. Oh dear. It's not the one. But anyway, I didn't even realise you were stuck, Georgina, and I need to find the other radio, because the battery's about to die in this one. But I put the other radio. I have a series radio. Where did I hide it? Anyway, yeah, I didn't even realise you know.
Okay, that was a brief snatch of a conversation on Northwest AllStar Group, which is a talk group on SvxLink. Leave you with that thought. Goodbye for now.